Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling agile transformation. And I think this one's going to be really interesting because it affects everyone. It's not just for like developers or tech people. This is about how your entire organization can work better together. So if you're listening and you're hoping to learn how to implement agile, or maybe you want to know what the pitfalls are, or even just why training and buy-in is important, well, stick around because I think this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting? A lot of organizations, they get stuck in kind of this agile limbo. They see that it could work, but they never fully implement it, and that's where things get kind of messy.
It's like you're on a football field, but half the team is playing rugby.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's just chaos.
That's a great analogy because you need everyone to speak the same language and be on the same page. If you're going to successfully transform to agile, it's like learning a new language. If only half the team knows what's going on, it's not going to work very well.
So it's not enough for just like one team to go agile.
Yeah,
The entire organization has to shift.
exactly.
Okay, so how do we even start to get everyone on board with this? What about leadership? How important is it for leadership to buy in?
Oh, it's critical. In fact, in one of the sources we were looking at for this deep dive, there was this company. They'd been around for a while. They were a big player in their industry. And they decided to try Agile. They got some coaches. They trained their teams. They even like restructured some of their departments. But there was one big thing missing.
What was that?
The CEO. He just didn't really buy in.
Oh, no. Yeah,
Wow.
I can see where this is going.
It didn't go well. He saw Agile as just like another project management fad, like something for the tech people to figure out. So he kept doing things the old way, command and control, that whole
But
thing.
even with all that training and restructuring, it sounds like it just fell apart because he wasn't on board.
Exactly. Yeah. It created so much confusion and frustration. The teams felt empowered in theory, but then they were constantly being micromanaged. It slowed everything down.
Wow, so it's not enough for leaders to just say they support Agile. They have to really understand it and like live it.
Yeah, they need to lead by example, empower their teams, and really foster that collaborative environment.
Okay, so we've talked about leadership buy-in,
hmm
but what about everybody else? Does everyone in the company need to understand Agile, even if their team is already doing it?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes, because Agile is more than just a set of practices like Scrum or Kanban. It's a whole different way of working, it's a mindset shift.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Think about it like this: you have a marketing team working on a new product launch, but they're using the old waterfall method where they plan everything up front. Then you have the developers who are using Scrum to work in these short sprints. It's going to be a mess. They're going to be speaking different languages.
Yeah, that makes
What if
sense.
they have the same goal? They won't be able to communicate effectively.
So even if you're not on a Scrum team, just knowing like the basics of Agile, like what's a sprint or a backlog, could be super helpful for working with other teams.
Absolutely. It makes it so much easier for everyone to contribute to the bigger picture. And remember, Agile is all about adapting to change. So the more people who understand it, the better your organization will be at navigating any uncertainty.
Okay, so we've covered why leadership buy-in is so important and why everyone needs to have at least a basic understanding of Agile. But how do we actually go about making this happen? How do we build that Agile culture?
Well, it all starts with training, but not just any training. It has to be the right kind of training. It has to be engaging and interactive. We need to get rid of those boring PowerPoint presentations and those death by webinar training
Oh
sessions.
yeah, those are the worst.
Nobody learns anything from those. We need to think about hands-on workshops, simulations, maybe even some gamified learning
That's
experiences.
a good idea.
It needs to be practical, something that people can actually apply to their work. Because remember, mindset without skill set leads nowhere.
So it's not enough to just know the theory behind Agile. You have to know how to actually use it.
Exactly. That's where good training can really make a difference. For example, you could have a training session where people simulate a sprint planning meeting and they learn how to break down tasks, estimate effort, prioritize items in a backlog, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds a lot more helpful than just like listening to someone talk about it.
Definitely. People are way more likely to remember something if they actually get to experience it.
Okay, so we've got the engaging training, but how do we keep the momentum going? How do we make sure people keep using what they learned and that Agile actually becomes part of the company culture?
Well, one way is to have what are called Agile champions. These are people in each department who are really passionate about Agile, they have a deep understanding of how it works, and they act as mentors and coaches for their teams.
So they're kind of like agile cheerleaders.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They're the go-to people for any questions or guidance as teams are trying to adopt Agile.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
Having those champions spread throughout the company
Mhm.
could really help make agile part of how everything gets done.
Absolutely. They bridge the gap between the training and the actual day-to-day work.
Okay, so we've got engaging training and we've got agile champions. What else can organizations do to really build that agile culture?
Well, one of the most important things is regular retrospectives.
Retrospectives, there's those meetings where you talk about what went well and what could be improved.
Yeah, exactly. But they're more than just like a post-project debrief. They're a chance for teams to continuously learn and adapt.
Okay, but how do retrospectives help with building an agile culture?
They create a safe space for honest feedback. Team members can share what's working, what's not working, and then they can brainstorm ways to improve their processes. It's all about fostering a culture of continuous improvement, which is at the heart of Agile.
Right, because by regularly looking back and identifying what needs to change, the teams are always evolving and becoming more efficient.
Exactly. And it's not just about fixing things that went wrong, it's also about celebrating successes, recognizing what's going well.
Okay, I like that. So the retrospectives are all about learning and adapting. But how do we make sure Agile isn't just something we talk about in meetings? How do we make it part of our everyday communication?
That's where language comes in. By using Agile terminology in our everyday conversations, we're reinforcing those concepts and making them more accessible to everyone.
So instead of saying like, we need to finish this project by next Friday, you might say, what can we achieve in this sprint?
Exactly. It's a small change, but it can make a big difference in how people think about their work.
Yeah, I like that. It's about making Agile language feel natural, not something you only use in certain situations.
Right. It creates a shared understanding and helps Agile feel like a core part of how we work.
Okay, so we've talked about training, Agile champions,
Mm-hmm.
retrospectives, and even the language we use. It sounds like building an Agile culture is a pretty complex process,
It is. It takes time and commitment from everyone involved.
but I imagine the benefits are worth it. What would a workplace where Agile is truly ingrained in the culture look like?
Well, I think it would be a place where teams feel empowered, empowered to make decisions, experiment, learn from their mistakes. It would be a place where collaboration and continuous improvement aren't just buzzwords, they're a way of life.
That sounds pretty amazing.
It is. And it's achievable for any organization that's willing to embrace the power of Agile.
So we've talked about all these different aspects of Agile transformation, but let's get down to brass tacks. What's in it for me as an employee? How can Agile actually make my work life better?
That's the question everyone wants to know, right? Think about all those times you've been stuck in these endless meetings, or drowning in emails, or maybe you just felt lost, like you didn't even know what your priorities should be.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Agile can help with all of that. Imagine starting each day, and you know exactly what you need to do, and you feel like your work actually matters, and you have the freedom to make decisions and solve problems.
Okay, yeah, that does sound a lot better.
It is. Agile is all about transparency. So everybody's on the same page. You're not working in silos anymore. You're part of a real team.
So it's not just about working faster, it's about creating a work environment that's actually enjoyable.
Exactly. And because Agile is all about continuous improvement, you're always learning and growing. You're encouraged to experiment, try new things, and see change as an opportunity.
I like that. But let's be real for a second. Not every company is going to jump on the Agile train overnight. What advice would you give to someone who's facing resistance? Or maybe their colleagues are just skeptical.
I would say start small. You don't have to transform the entire organization all at once. Just focus on your own team or department. Show them how Agile can make things better. Show them how it can increase efficiency and collaboration, and how it can make everyone happier.
So lead by example.
Yeah, exactly. Prove that it works. And don't be afraid to share your knowledge with others. Explain Agile in a way that makes sense to them. Relate it to their work.
Be an Agile champion.
Yes, every voice matters. The more people who understand and embrace Agile, the more successful your organization will be.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive. It's clear that Agile is more than just a methodology. It's a philosophy,
Right.
a way of thinking,
It's a culture.
and it's a journey.
It is.
So before we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
Agile is about people. It's about giving individuals and teams the tools they need to work together, solve problems, and deliver value.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and that you feel inspired to embrace Agile. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep